Moving on. So, welcome Pete, Szabo, to week number 6 of the photo challenge. Thank you once again for submitting to the Sharp Goat photo challenge. And let's take a look at your picks for guess your settings. Let's give the internet a second to catch up. Whoa! What am I looking at? Funky ground. Ice melting. Ice can melt, the winter can go bye-bye so that we can get outside and do some more colorful spring photo challenges. I'm waiting for the spring to get here because, God, we're going to have some fun. And I can see the camera that you're using over here. This is great. I love this feature. Flicker. This is great. 60D 2875. This is great. And your settings are all right here. Beautiful. So 2.8, 1/640, and 35 mil. So for exposure-wise, yeah, nailed it. And ice can be a little bit tricky because it's basically glass. It's a very glass-like surface, and shooting glass is very tough because the light plays very differently, and so you got to take into account what's the darkest point you're dealing with, what's the brightest point, and how do you expose properly for that. So yeah, you guessed pretty damn well there, Pete. Good shot. Yeah, it's a cool looking pattern, and yeah, it's interesting, that's for sure. Okay, moving on. Field machines, cool. Again, outdoor shot, f2.8, 1/1250 this time. ISO's 160. Okay, and shot with a 50 or at 50 mil. Alrighty, so this one looks a little bit, and again, if you're going off of the light meter would trick you out a little bit, especially in the daylight. Overcast day, it will, if you're going off the light meter, it will go for the more underexposed side, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because it gets stripped up by the sky and all the white of the snow and whatnot. So it will lean you more towards the underexposed side. So for this, it is ever so slightly under. But again, especially if you're shooting raw, you've got more than enough to work with here. But yeah, definitely not wrong. Definitely not off. Just ever so slightly underexposed, but that's fine. Damn good for your first shot too. Yeah, and this f.8, again, if it's daylight, you can afford to close that up. So instead of speeding the shutter up, you're blurring out the foreground here. I get that you're rocking that. You could still get the same effect if you close it up to like 5.6ish, but your choice of 2.8 means these get blurred out entirely. So it's just they're just kind of obstructing the machines just a little bit. If you were going to be if this was a photo that you were taking of these machines, and let's say this was for a client, they may say these are still obstructing the machines a little bit too much, so you might have to come up, boom up the camera a little bit, just to make sure that they clear your foreground here. But again, unless that's what you're going for. So yeah, good job. Moving on here. Okay, shot of the woods. Is it properly exposed? Yes. Definitely, for sure. Looking at the dark points, so I'm looking at right around here for the darker parts of the image of this tree trunk right here. And again, it appears that they are the white parts are white, the dark parts are dark. That's probably exposed. That's bang on, perfect. Yeah, and especially if you're shooting raw, you could definitely play with that. That's great. This here, 1/1000, again, speeding that up. You know how to adjust that shutter for daylight, shooting for all the daylight over on an overcast day right now. As a photo, it's forest. It also appears just a little bit canted to the right, just ever so slightly. But it's woods. There's not much else going on here. But it's not a bad photo. That's what I'm trying to say. It's right in the middle. So it is properly exposed. It does for the challenge. You nailed it. You got that. Otherwise, yeah, there's not a whole lot going on in this scene, except that the snow is melting and I want the snow gone. So I like that. Ah! Holy shit. Wow. That is one grumpy cat. Hold on a second. Hold on. Ho 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 ho. I think we have a relative, long lost relative. Here we go. I just gotta close this off. Supersize this. What is this? Look at the grumpy cat. Oh, why can't I properly frame this up? There we go. Look at that. I think you got a relatively grumpy cat. Look at that. They're so friggin' close. That's uncanny. They're cousins. Okay, enough of that tangent. Wow. Ooh. So, 1/15. Okay, were you on the tripod for this? Because that's a slow enough shutter speed that I would definitely put that on the tripod, because any hand movement will make it, will cause it to blur. And also, if you're shooting an animal at 1/15, that's definitely going to be tough. They've got to sit still for that. So, that's 75 mil. Okay, and for this, it does look like, especially at 75 mil, the longer focal lengths, your hand movement will affect the image a bit more. I don't know if it's the cat moving or the camera moving, or if the focus is off, but it looks a little bit off on the eyes and nose, and so of the face. It looks like it focused more on the whiskers, actually, if anything else. So, but as for exposure, ever so slightly under, maybe just a stop or two on the underexposed side is all that I'm seeing here. Again, if you're shooting raw, that's not a problem. You can probably boost it from here. But for this particular shot, if we were focusing on if you got the exposure, it does look a little bit on the underside, which it wouldn't be too much of a big deal anyways, because there is a little bit of light bouncing off in the cat's eyes, and so you can definitely work with it. Again, it's not in focus though. It's soft, it's blurry, so as a photo, it is out of focus. But is it probably exposed? It's close. It's very close. Okay, and here we go. Christmas greens. I hope you don't still have your Christmas decorations out. It's almost April, dude. But damn, okay, this is a good one. Exposure. Nailed it. Awesome. This is perfectly exposed. Look at the darks of the pine cone here. That's where you want the darks to be, right in the dark parts of the image. You don't want too much of the image to be too dark. That's how you look for if it's properly exposed. Okay, you pick your darkest point of the image and your lightest part of the image, and hopefully everything that's supposed to be in between that is in between that. There's nothing that should be. For instance, if let's say this little bit of or actually here, look at the this shadowed part of the of what the plant is sitting on the bench here. If that was dark, if that was black, then you'd know that that the image is underexposed, because these are the darkest parts of the image. Those are supposed to be black. This is supposed to be lighter. You can definitely see that it's supposed to be. So if it was also black, then you could tell that it was underexposed. If too much of the image matches the darkest point is dark, then this is an awful way for me to explain it. I just try to look to see is there a good are there good points that are the darkest parts of the image, and are there good points that are the whitest parts of the image, and how is the overall contrast of the rest of the photo. So just judging this photo here, this looks like perfect exposure, perfect. It's got even the right amount of contrast to it already. If you were to punch that any more, you could definitely bring more out of this if this was a raw image. And as a photo, it looks a little too close. Actually, you got to give it some more breathing room, because it is cutting off. First of all, it does look at the follow these lines here. You can see that it is a little bit canted to your left. So remember to straighten that out. If it's centered, it's nice, but if you wanted to give it a bit more room, and rather than shooting down so much at it, maybe get down more on its level so that you could shoot it almost flat against the wall. So it's got this nice rocky texture behind it, those sorts of things. But again, most of these shots were probably, most of the shots that people took this week were probably just taken kind of in passing, like pick a subject, guess the settings, boom, take the shot. So again, subjects not necessarily created or picked for creativity, which we will definitely be getting back into, because it looks like people really nailed this week's challenge. They really know how to shoot manual and get the proper exposure very close that first time. And that's the point when you are shooting manual that you're not always going to get it on the first shot, and you usually do need a few test shots. So that's why when you're with your subject, you can just tell them, relax, I'm just going to take a few shots. Don't get them smiling right away. Don't get them ready. Just say, you can just chill for a second. Just stand there, be yourself. Click, get your shots, get your test shots, adjust from there, and then get them set up. Yeah, don't ever expect to be getting your shot perfect on the first try. If you do, then congratulate yourself, because it doesn't happen all that often. But you can definitely get as close as possible and give yourself a little bit of wiggle room with the settings, and then fix the settings from there. So thank you, Pete, for submitting this week. Really appreciate it. Love the shots, and we will see you next week, hopefully.